Weird. Okay, so let me play you a throwback video from the artist formerly known as MSNBC and my friend Chris Hayes' show.
Circumstances would a Supreme Court justice be accepting hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars in foreign travel or paid tuition for family members or a recreational vehicle, motor stagecoach? It's just outlandish for us to contemplate. I mean, that's like a jailable offense for people over here. And it's just like the normal business as usual at the Supreme Court that they're collecting millions of dollars and hundreds of thousands of dollars from their so-called friends. And so we need to clean that up. And that's why, we said we're going to start with something simple that the whole country will be able to understand immediately and intuitively. We want a $50 gift ban for U.S. Supreme Court justices. They make $300,000 a year, pay for your own lunch, and pay for your own vacation.
Yeah, that does seem quite clear, Congresswoman, and also has the advantage, again, there's particular issues to deal with the members of this court. But in some ways, the only way to legislate it or for Congress to act is outlaying some broad principles that are equally applicable.
Absolutely. And as all of us as public servants and federal public servants, whether it is both chambers of Congress, whether it is the White House, many of us are subject to the same, if not extremely similar and uniform code of ethics. And the fact that the Supreme Court, which is already unelected, at least for those of us who run for office, we have to rerun for office every 2 years here in the House. For an unelected body of 9 people appointed for life to not have any sort of binding, strict ethics code to which they can not only be held accountable, but which can be enforced is actually ludicrous. And it's almost unbelievable that we are sitting here in the year 2024, over 200 years after the establishment of this country, and that we actually have not addressed this issue. It is something that is long past doing, and it's common sense.
Indeed. And by the way, that was in 2024, and things have not gotten better. In fact, they've gotten worse. It's just why the title of tonight's show is Everyone for Sale? And joining us now to answer that question is our friend Elie Mystal, justice correspondent at The Nation. Elie, it's kind of amazing to look back at, first of all, at the fact that network was called MSNBC and it's not anymore. It's like, that makes me sad. But you had Jamie Raskin and AOC back then saying, oh my God, we have rampant corruption on the court, and it's gotten worse.
Absolutely. Before I get there, though, I didn't want to let the Nolan Wells story pass me by. Just because, and Joy, I know you experienced this too, as a Black parent, this is kind of our fear. When we send our babies out into predominantly white or all white situations, right? I'm not saying that the white friends are lying. I don't have any reason to believe that they're lying. There's nothing legally so far that raises my suspicion that they're lying. But it's kind of not the point, right? Because they don't know anything. And that's the problem, right? When you send your Black baby out with white folks, they don't know anything. They don't pay any attention. They don't know what happened. And that would never happen when you never think that's going to happen when you send your baby out with our people, right? There ain't no way that you send your kid out with all of his Black friends and 5 of them come home and 1 of them doesn't, and they can't tell the mother nothing. They don't know that never happens amongst us. But when you send your baby out with white kids, they don't know nothing. They weren't looking out for their boy. They weren't looking out for their buddy. They don't remember how. That's the fear. And so while that's not a legal issue, it is a social and an emotional issue, I think, for every Black parent in this country. Lord knows my 2 Black boy children with predominantly white friends in a predominantly white school. When I am watching them play around with their friends at birthday parties or holidays or whatever, that's what I'm looking for. Which one of your white friends gives a damn enough to notice if you're in the room or not? Gives a damn enough to have your back in a situation? Because that's what I need from a white friend, to give a damn. So I just wanted to say that.
Well, I mean, and the thing is, the idea is, that we've come so far that, we live in these integrated situations where our kids can even have white friends, which was patently illegal, particularly in a state like Mississippi. Like white kids and black kids, as they got to a certain age, they would play together as little kids. But as soon as they got to, the puberty age, they had to separate because of Jim Crow and because of the terror of white families that their white daughter would start to like a black boy. And so there was a real danger around having white friends in the 50s, prior to the 1970s. And so it's an interesting thing that, people feel like, well, we've come so far, but you're right. I mean, D.L. Hewley did a joke on his show where he said, what do you call a white teenager who goes out voting with black friends? He said, the answer is safe and alive because
Right.
I wish you would, as a black parent, come back without your little white friend. We gonna make you tell, where's your
Right.
friend? And we're not gonna let you come back with that. Like, actually, that wouldn't happen. Like, you just, the black parenting is just that the idea is, first of all, that your black children would be under the jail if they didn't bring the friend back. Let's start with that. Because if
Right.
these had been black boys who didn't bring the white friend back, the Jackson sheriff would have been behaving very differently. I can't imagine a sheriff saying that the one white friend that went with a bunch of black kids just chose to stay behind. I can't imagine that. I mean, maybe it could happen. I mean, I don't know everything, but it's just hard for me to imagine the reverse where the sheriff says, oh, there's nothing to see here. This young white kid just disappeared, and not literally turn over every black family's household, rifle through their homes, arrest them, grab those black boys, throw them up against a police car, interrogate them for hours until they admitted what happened to the boy.
Yep. That's 100% what happened. Yet when it's reversed, when it's the black child that doesn't show up, they're like, oh, it must have drowned. Oh, something must have happened. Oh, no need to turn these white families' lives upside down to figure out the real story. That and I think we all expect. But again, as a parent, you worry, you wonder, how do you explain that to your children, right? You don't want your own children to come in with that baggage, and yet they gotta know. They got to know that if they're going out with their white friends, they are alone, and they have to act accordingly. And that is a parenting challenge, for people like you and me. And it's one of the many parenting challenges that white families just don't face and don't even know about. Don't, like, if we're talking to whites, even your spicy whites, they don't know that these are the conversations that we're having with our black children before they go out to the bar mitzvah, before they go out to the Sweet 16, before they go out to the college party. These are the conversations that we have to have with them because we know what happens on the back end.
Yeah, well, at least the Spiceys want to know. That's how we love our Spiceys. They want to know. They try to know. They're like David, Jolly Good Ginger, who's like, tell me everything. I'm taking notes. Let's talk about this corruption thing, because it's the other thing that people used to not have to have a conversation about was the Supreme Court. I mean, the idea was the Supreme Court, at least you want to talk about African Americans, was the backstop for our rights, right? Even an all-white court, some of whom, as young men had been right-wing racist in the Klan, but the Warren Court kind of proved that, even before it had a black member, before Thurgood Marshall, that 20th century era of the Supreme Court was like a golden era for black rights, for disabled rights, for women's rights. It was sort of amazing that a court full of people who were probably born in some cases in like the early 20th or late 19th century did that. This court is dismantling it all and getting rich in the process, or living rich anyway.
And that interregnum, that small period of time from circa 1954 with Brown v. Board of Ed to around 1981, that period of time has warped the entire movement, has warped the entire civil rights movement into thinking that the Supreme Court is or could be or should be our friend. And it's not. That was actually a brief period of history. And if you look at anything before 1954, and if you look at everything after 1980, all you see is the Supreme Court acting as a stop, as a retardation on progress in this country, right? And yet, if you are black of a certain age and you grew up in that era, Barack Obama springs to mind. Yeah. You have the wrong idea. You didn't get the memo as to what the Supreme Court is and has been, but for the 20 years while you were in college and the Supreme Court was doing some good things. So it is a nightmare that the black community needs to wake up from and understand the Supreme Court is against us, and then do everything in our power to take control of the Supreme Court. And that, I think Jamie Raskin and AOC are right. It starts with ethics reform. It is the most politically easy thing to do. But as you pointed out, Joy, that was a clip from 2014. We're in 2024. We're in 2026, and ain't nothing happened. But I'll tell you what. So 2 weeks ago, Elena Kagan and Amy Coney Barrett showed up in front of Congress asking for money. They were sent there by John Roberts because John Roberts couldn't lower himself to ask for money. So they sent Amy Coney Barrett to dance a tarantella and talk about how much the Supreme Court needs more money for security forces, right? And Amy Coney Barrett told her sob story about the time that she got swatted and how she has to wear a bulletproof vest, and explained it to her children, and people were all sad. And look, I get it. We were just talking about having black children. You know who else has black children? Amy Coney Barrett. Right? And so when she's talking about being swatted and how dangerous that is for her and her kids, no, I get that. You don't want no cops banging through your door when you got black children at home, because cops and black children don't mix very well, right? So I was completely sympathetic to her story. But what was the ask? The ask was for more money. So that shows you that Congress needs to give them that money, and Congress could say no. Congress could hold that money, and I'm going to use a word, hostage, until these people sign an ethics reform bill. I would have looked Amy Coney Barrett dead in the eyeballs and said, you know what, Justice Barrett, if you want the security funding, you're going to sign my ethics reform bill. And if you don't sign my ethics reform bill, I suppose you should learn karate. Right? I suppose you should learn that self-defense thing where you put your key in your fist, and because you ain't getting a cent out of me until you sign on to ethics reform. Is that what the Democrats did? No. No, Steny Hoyer running to the camera as soon as the hearing was forward. Oh, we got to make sure the Supreme Court has enough money for security. All the Democrats is falling on, oh, we got to make sure the Supreme... No, there were some Democrats who were just like, oh, Donald Trump has created this environment where these people are under threat. The Supreme Court has created the environment. You don't need so much money for security if you actually have reasonable gun laws, which the Supreme Court won't let us have, which is another thing that I would have pointed out to Justice Barrett to her face, right? But the Democrats don't do these things. And this goes to why the Supreme Court acts the way it does, because they don't fear the opposition party at all. There's not one point where anybody sitting on the Supreme Court, starting from John Roberts, who, again, could not bother to show his face in front of Congress, not a single person on the Supreme Court fears what Democrats in Congress or a future Democratic president is going to do to them or their institution. They are truly out here like, who going to check me, boo? And the Democrats keep saying, not me, not I, sir. Check them. Hold that money hostage until they sign ethics reform. It is a point and click way to bring these people to heel, and the Democrats won't do it.
Yeah. Or they could just say, why don't you get your rich billionaire friends who take you on fancy vacations to pay for your security?
Have Harlan Crow pay for your bunker.
Let them pay for it. I mean, literally, they're giving you an RV, a tricked out RV. They're taking you on fabulous vacations. I'm sure they have security when you go on vacation. Tell them to keep writing another check, write one more check for you to get private security. You can afford a private lifestyle funded by billionaires. Let the billionaires, let Leonard Leo pay for your security. That's what I would have told them. I would have said, we're not writing you another dime because Leonard Leo is giving you guys unlimited, expense accounts to live like kings on your $300 and some odd $1,000 salary. Plus you have a $300 some odd $1,000 salary, which is more than most Americans earn. Pay for your own security or get your billionaire friends to do it. Let your little friends do it. That's what I would have told them.
To say nothing of the fact that I don't want the Supreme Court to have their own private security forces.
An army, a private army.
To have their own private army. I don't think that's I don't think that's what the Constitution intended. You don't need more security officers detailed to the Supreme Court. You need the Supreme Court to get the guns off the street. You need the Supreme Court to stop making rulings that make everybody in this country armed and dangerous. That would protect them. And if they want additional funding for Congress, sign an ethics reform bill.
Amen.